So, net zero by 2050. First of all, really happy to be here to share with you what we're doing and what we're up to here. And I'm just going to figure this one out. So, Korb and I are going to just walk through a quick overview of why we set a net zero target, just to make sure we're all on the same page, and then give you an update on what DFC is doing on projects, our link to research and our Pro Action program, talk a little bit about some Lactanet projects that are going on, and introduce you to our new national KT project. And then we'll talk a little bit about opportunities and challenges at the end. So fairly quickly, a couple of years ago, we had a policy conference at DFC, and the farmers and the delegates were discussing all of the sustainability kind of issues of the day, consumer expectations, climate change, commitments that were happening around the world, and also obviously wanting to make sure that as dairy farmers they stayed competitive and thriving. And really kind of put the challenge out to DFC to come up with a strategy or an initiative to kind of package all of these pieces together and figure out how to move forward with this. So that's where the net zero by 2050 target kind of came from, and we weren't alone in doing that. Many companies have made net zero targets, our processors, food businesses. Many of them also have interim targets, so 2030, so trying to make sure that they're on their way to 2050 through those. The Government of Canada has a 2050 target, and of course the international community is on the way as well. And many of our dairy businesses are also global, so it works together with those international targets. How are we going to do it? Essentially, DFC did a net zero modeling study where they looked at kind of the opportunity for reducing emissions as well as capturing carbon through carbon sequestration. Did a bunch of focus groups with farmers on best management practices, and came up with sort of a strategy and a model of how it could work, and published our best management practices guide. So this is like a menu of BMPs that farmers can select from. Hopefully there's some inspiration in there. It's not meant to be a do everything guide, it's more of a choose your own adventure. So through these two documents, that's sort of how we set our way forward. And we have kind of tried to put our work under 6 categories, if you will. So measurement tools, research and innovation, strategic partnerships, economic opportunities, positive regulatory environment, and communication. So that's a little bit about how we got to where we are, and I'll let you know what we're doing. So under our first pillar is measurement tools, and one of our kind of main measurement tools that we use is our life cycle assessment. So we did one in 2011, and we did one in 2016, and we have our famous 2021 LCA still in the works. We are almost there. This one has taken us a little bit longer. We did a critical review this time around, which added some time to it. And we've also had some other challenges, but we are looking forward to those results. And basically that will be, it's our carbon footprint for the dairy, for producing milk, all the way through to the transportation to the processing plant. So with that report, we'll have our updated carbon footprint, water footprint, and land use footprint. And we use this as well, or we use this to help us with our net zero modeling to kind of see where are we along the path. At the same time, we've done a carbon sequestration study. This one is almost finished as well. It's relying on our LCA results, so we're not quite there yet. But this one really looked at did a literature review to see what's available, what data is out there that's available, and I think what we're gonna basically conclude out of this is we have a lot of work to do. So if we want to be looking at capturing or reporting on and figuring out how much carbon our farms are capturing, we've got some work to do to get an accurate picture on that. We're also setting up a scientific advisory committee for all of those researchers in the room to help us make decisions and model things through. And one of our recent projects was also, we updated our environmental materiality assessment. So we surveyed and interviewed a wide variety of our dairy partners in the value chain, and really focused on what do they need, what's material to them, what do they need us to be reporting on, and we just have the results from that. So essentially what it did as a very, very high level is confirmed what we suspected, but the top two issues are still environmental sustainability and animal welfare. So those two pieces are what we need to focus in on. So that's kind of the national level, sort of the overall Canadian reporting, if you will. But we've heard a lot from farmers, if you want me to reach net zero, I need to know where I am today so that I can figure out what it is I need to do to get there. So we've just launched a project on farm with the Cool Farm tool. We are planning to pilot that on 40 farms across Canada. We're working with our provincial counterparts. So Guy here at DFO is managing the project in Ontario, and those our provincial partners have found local advisors to help farmers, and those advisors will help farmers collect the data, input the data, and create essentially continuous improvement plans. So the point here being, once you have your results, where are your opportunities for improvement? Pick a BMP and adopt it. And with the Cool Farm tool, you can actually run scenarios. So if I do X, what happens to my footprint? So we're really excited about this one. We're hoping it goes really well. And then we'll gather the feedback. It's basically a user experience pilot. And if all goes well, we're hoping to be able to offer this nationally to farmers to use as they wish. At the same time, the Living Labs are also doing work with on-farm calculators. And Quebec in particular is comparing 4 of them. Cool Farm is one of them. And what they're doing is collecting all the data from the farms and then inputting it into all 4 of the tools to see if the results are similar. So we're really looking forward. We think the 2 projects work really well. I think Atlantic is doing something similar, and in Ontario here you're focusing in on BMPs. So really hoping that all of that work together will help us decide what to do moving forward. If we move to partnerships, we've done some projects with organizations like Ducks, Clean Farms, Tree Canada, basically encouraging farmers to plant trees, for example. So these are kind of easy, positive projects. We also have a partnership with Farm Credit Canada. You may be familiar with them. They've done they have a whole sustainability incentive program. They started with beef, grains, and potatoes, and then wanted to expand it to dairy. So we partnered with them as well as with Lactanet and launched this last year. And basically, if you're a FCC customer and you meet the sustainability criteria that they've set, you could get up to $2,000 in your pocket, basically. This year we relaunched that with Starbucks Canada, and they added in an additional $2,000 for 2 categories, top achievers and most improved. So in theory, a farm could get up to $4,000. It's pretty easy to apply. And it's a nice example of a way to support sustainability and best management practices on farms. If you're a farmer, feel free to go check it out and apply. Along the same pathways on our partnership side of things, a very small part of this, but we were, along with Lactanet, supported CMEX's project into the methane challenge. So really excited to see how that works out. They've been successful so far, working through that process. And just overall, wanted to mention how important collaboration is. So we know we're all working towards sustainable goals, 2030, 2050. So it's really important that we work together. So we are looking at a forum for discussion with our dairy value chain. How can we make sure we have those communications, that information exchange? And we're also re-looking at our process that we have for partnerships and collaborations to make sure that it makes sense and we improve it along the way. So, economic opportunities. Everybody likes money. With this, we have started a project where we're looking at different business models. So there's a number of ways that we can approach trying to encourage BMP adoption on farm. It could be carbon markets. Is there a role for DFC or provincial organizations to be carbon project aggregators? Is it low carbon milk? Is it posting a project and inviting people to contribute to it, basically like the direct pay model, if you will, which is happening in other countries. 3NOP is a good example where in Europe there are some businesses that are paying farmers to feed the feed additive. So we want to look at these different types of models and see what might work well for us, pick a model, and then pick a BMP and pilot it and see if that works. So, so there's a lot of work in that one, but it brings in a lot of interesting conversations. And then we move to policy and regulations. So we have a fair amount of things happening on the global stage. So we do try our best to follow those international trends. Korb was lucky enough to go to COP28 in Dubai. He did learn the art of camel racing, so if you need tips and tricks, talk to Korb later. Yeah, photo courtesy of Annie Akhmoudi, thank you. But in all seriousness, Korb spoke at this event. We had our sustainability manager, Fiona, just come back from Cali, Colombia last week. There was the biodiversity conference. And I think we're learning that it's really important that we're at these events. They're talking about agriculture, they're talking about farming, so farmers need to be there, need to be part of that conversation. There's a lot happening domestically as well, and we need to make sure through our regulations and our policies that Canadian dairy farmers have access to the same tools that other farmers do. So one example here is we were very pleased that CFIA created a new regulatory pathway for feed additives with environmental claims. So 3NOP, for example, was approved at the beginning of this year. So it's that kind of work that we want to make sure we stay up to date on. And
can I make a quick comment
about
that last one? So just a quick comment on the international front. There's a great expression that we learned when we were there. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And that's 100% true in some of these negotiations. A lot of this negotiation goes on. We are part of an international community, and if we're not there adding our voice to the conversation, we're the ones who are on the chopping block. So agriculture has finally made it to COP after many, many years of just being the environment. And if So I'll just give you a quick story
No,
to tackle. But just to give you a quick example, we went to a session that was talking about school nutrition and how important it was for school nutrition. It was sponsored by the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations and a lot of very important people across the front of the room. And they talked about how important it was for students of all ages to get a great lunch. And then they had a bunch of nice graphs in the back, and the next graph was said, and as we all know, the only good lunch to have is a vegan lunch. And we kind of, oh, did we all know that? I didn't know we all knew that. And then the next one said, and we have proven that if we provide a vegan lunch and we eliminate all animal products, that we've got a very easy way to pay for it. And the next person said, and the way to pay for it is to tax anybody who's making an animal product to help support the vegan lunch in old age homes and in schools. And then the next person said, and we're doing it in Denmark very successfully, and we're seeing great health outcomes. And that was just at a UN conference that was presented as fact. So it wasn't a discussion. So luckily, if we're at the table, we can at least participate and give the advantages of animal agriculture, not only to the nutrition side of things, but to the environment, to the economy, to the traditional stuff, to the local community and culture. So there, I started to divest a little bit, but that was one of the huge things that I took back from that COP conference in December.
And that's why we love having you, Korb, involved in all of this. On that front, communication is key. We have a couple of pieces here. Carbon markets is a big one. If I've learned anything about carbon markets, it's that they're complex and confusing. So we've done a little bit of like 101 work and posted that for farmers. We have more that's ready to go, and those materials are more, if you're a farmer and you get approached by a carbon developer, what do you need to think about? What are all the bits and pieces that are kind of in the background that you need to be aware of? So that's coming as well. And then we have our progress report with ProAction, and of course our BMP guide. But we're going to see if this works in a second. But one thing that was new this year is greenwashing. We have new regulations and guidance around greenwashing. So you can't just say what you feel like about sustainability. You need to make sure that you can back up what you say. And I think we're really lucky. We've got a lot of really great things that we can say about what dairy farmers are doing. We have good stories to tell. So we're going to see if we can make this work and play a little video for you. Oh, no, we got to go to that. But thank you.
Just trying to help.
Like, fine assistant. Okay.
Look at the cows. Every Canadian dairy farm is unique, which is why we take charge of our own environmental farm plans.
Can you hear it?
My plan includes protecting nature in all its wonder.
And mine starts from the ground up.
And we're powered by the sun.
Why care so much? Because we hold ourselves to higher standards.
Okay, I don't think that worked. Did it work? You couldn't hear it? Sort of? Okay. All right, we won't do the next one because I'll. But for those that could hear it, it's fun, and these are all Canadian dairy farmers. And at the time, we couldn't go on farm. Actually, it wasn't because of COVID. It was because of avian flu. So they were all filming themselves, which is kind of cool. Through COVID, by the way, farmers had to do all of their own filming for all of our marketing ads, which I sat through some of those by Zoom. It was spectacular. They were amazing. They often had their children helping. But anyhow, so that's sort of all the projects that we're working on, the directions that we're going in. But research is another one of our pillars, and we have Amy and Anik in the room with us. You guys can go see them in the poster room later. They do amazing work for us. And we focus on 2 different pillars in research. We've got the dairy production research, but we also have human nutrition and health. And of course, on the topic of sustainability, sustainability is one of the research priorities, as well as animal health and welfare, and then the human nutrition. But I think it's important to note that animal health and welfare also contribute to sustainability. So kind of those two priority areas really are pertinent to the net zero discussion. We have a new fabulous section on our DFC website. Go check it out. Amy and Nick have organized this by research topic as well as research projects. So for all of you researchers in the room, if you have projects with us, you'll end up on our website. We're really excited about this, and there's a whole bunch of knowledge transfer tools and information in there as well. And just for fun, you probably can't read this, but these are some of the projects that we have going on right now related to sustainability. Some really interesting projects happening through things like carbon sequestration, genetic improvement, all of those great things. Thank you very much to the researchers in the room for the work that you do. I always find whenever I get to look at what's coming, I want the results now. So I'm very impatient, and it's very exciting to see all of the great work that's happening. A little call out to our Pro Action program, and Korb, get ready because you're next. We do get questions about what's the difference between your sustainability work and the Pro Action program. It really comes down to sustainability is meant to be voluntary collective action. So if everybody is doing their piece, hopefully we get to where we want to go. Pro Action is mandatory, so everyone has to do that. We have the environmental module, we have the animal care module, we have pieces that really flow in and support sustainability, and the 2 teams work really closely together. So if there's an opportunity through Pro Action to help the net zero piece, we will look for that opportunity. And we do have some data collection that works through that piece as well. So they're separate but closely linked. And with that, Korb, I will pass it to you. I don't know if this, do you want this or not?
Yeah, I'm going to bring my sheets up.
Right.
Thanks very much. I appreciate you having me. It's been a while since I have spoken, so you have to bear with me. The last time I actually spoke was in my hometown. I was doing a sustainability conversation, and well, I saw George walk in. George was there. Somebody from the back shouted, "If I have to hear Korb Whale say one more damn thing about sustainability, I'm going to lose my marbles." So if any of you feel that, feel free to stand up and shout it. I've heard it before. I don't have a great response to it, but I think this is a very important topic for our industry, and I think collaboration is the key to making it happen, not only for us on farm, but for our consumers and everybody else. And we'll get to the rah-rah rally speech at the end. I want to start with a little bit of what Lactanet is doing. And when I talk about Lactanet, Lactanet obviously works with a lot of different people and groups, including CMEX and the University of Guelph, Valacta, CDN. It's a collaboration of a lot of different people. So when I say the word Lactanet on some of these projects, and I haven't included all of the partners, just know that I'm talking about all of us. So on the genetic side, Lactanet's developed a new world-leading genetic selection tool to support Canadian dairy farmers' sustainability efforts. We started in 2021 with the Feed Efficiency Index, and it allows us to select for cows that use less feed resources to produce milk. Since 2023, we've added a Body Maintenance Index, which helps breeding animals that spend less energy on feed and maintenance and more towards milk production. And also that helps to contribute towards feed efficiency. And also in 2023 was the world's first genetic index for methane efficiency. So it helps us breed cows that generate less greenhouse gas per liter of milk genetically. I should make sure I keep my buttons handy. So the Lactanet's long-standing relationship and collaboration with the University of Guelph was crucial for the development of our selection index for methane efficiency, University of Guelph research has demonstrated that a cow's methane production could be estimated from the milk's infrared fingerprint. The research finding is fundamental in our ability to generate a large number of phenotypes to allow the team to develop a generic breeding value for methane efficiency. So the research finding from the University of Guelph, it wouldn't have been possible and had any immediate impact if it weren't for Lactanet's DHI partners. They decided about 10 years ago to collect and store MIR data for every DHI sample since 2013, starting with Valact in Quebec, and then more than 10 years ago, and now for almost every DHI sample in Canada, we collect that information. And the idea at the time was to collect it. We weren't sure what we were going to use it for, and now it's paying dividends. So we've got millions of records that can be used to predict methane, but who knows what that will lead us to predicting in the future. So this slide, whoa, I'm falling off the stage here. This slide illustrates the potential for a methane efficiency evaluation to reduce greenhouse gases, and more specifically to reduce the production of enteric methane, which is the biggest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions on farm. Almost half of our emissions are due to enteric methane. So although the difference isn't large, you see 1.5% per year, the impact can be major because it's both cumulative and additive. So it's cumulative in the sense that genetic improvement carries through to the next generation, and it gains with the new generation. Those gains are added to the next generation. And it's additive because any improvement in other aspects of herd management, like feeding, other genetic factors or additives on the farm, add to that gain. So by 2050, if you were to choose methane reduction as one of your selection criteria, you could reduce your emissions by 20 to 30% passively, just through genetics alone. So until the industry develops some kind of incentive for farmers to make this a selection tool, because at this point there are no financial advantages, the methane efficiency selection is going to be added to the updated LPI in the spring. So the LPI, the new index, is going to go under a major overhaul in April with the creation of 6 sub-indexes, and one of which being the environmental impact sub-index that will include methane efficiency, feed efficiency, and body maintenance requirements. So that way farmers, as they choose the LPI, will automatically be choosing some of these environmental traits into their genetics. At some point, we hope that there is a financial incentive, whether it's carbon capture or other, to make that decision without including it. But at this point, this is the best way to introduce it into the herd. So switching gears, I also want to highlight another initiative. Another initiative that Lactanet's developed in the last few years, and it's called the Herd Sustainability Index. So this index was developed in collaboration with producers and advisors and sustainability experts to reflect some other aspects of herd sustainability. And by herd sustainability, I mean the animals within your herd. So they're measured, and it's using data that already exists if you've been on milk recording. So the index is comprised of 10 metrics that are grouped under 4 categories: longevity and culling, feeding and production, heifers, and health. And a farmer will receive a report like this 3 times a year to show where they are currently and where they've been. And we can actually get a little more granular and look at the progress under each of those categories. So this gives you an idea of where you stand within the industry, where your areas of improvement are, and the impact it has. So the sustainability score is simply a sum total of all of these results. And this is the index that is used in the FCC grant that Nicole talked about earlier. So the last initiative I want to highlight is a research and development project that aims to extend the concept of predicting enteric methane. Oh, I did it now. There it is. Enteric methane from a milk sample. So rather than test each cow individually, we're looking towards the day where our bulk tank samples can be used to measure enteric methane of your herd. So as I mentioned previously, we can do that on the cow level. And we can measure that cow level methane with a sniffer, typically in a robot feeding station and at some research farms, to measure that cow's individual methane. And we correlate that back to a milk sample to measure with MIR data, like we talked about before, her actual methane. And as we collect enough milk samples with that MIR data, and we use machine learning to develop algorithms, hopefully we'll be able to generate predictions of methane emissions from unknown samples as well. So there's lots of technology around in the world on milk samples, whether it's if you DNA test all of your cows, for example, we can use a bulk tank sample to measure fat, protein, and somatic cells from the cows in your herd. This will be another measurement that we can use from a bulk tank sample right out of the tank. So the project, I might have gone too fast there. The project currently underway aims to extend this concept to predicting the enteric methane of the whole herd using milk samples from the bulk tank collected for milk payment analysis. So much like for the cows, we would be able to estimate the herd level enteric methane almost in real time, since we're taking samples every other day when our milk gets picked up. And it's going to be a great tool to monitor impact of the changes that you do on farm, whether it's from feeding or other practices on almost a real-time basis. Where are we now? I'll let you read that quick. Apparently I didn't move it fast enough. So the project's currently taking place on 14 commercial farms where we've installed sniffers in the robot feed bin so that every time a cow is milked, we collect methane production. And it's important that they're 14 commercial farms to reflect the real life practice on farm. They're in several different provinces across the country. And we do that for all the milking cows in the herd. And at the same time, we're collecting the mid-infrared spectral data from the bulk tank sample at every pickup, which we'll use to generate that methane prediction model at the herd level. In the second part of the project, we'll be using the resulting model to target 60 farms differentiated for their methane production, so various forms of cropping, feeding, and housing. And we'll collect additional data on feeding, herd management practices, and perform the whole farm carbon or greenhouse gas footprint assessment to identify practices that are related to differentiates in methane output. And then lastly, the findings of this project will be used to contribute to our knowledge transfer efforts about sustainability so that farmers can adopt some of those best management practices onto their farm and reduce their greenhouse gases simply by making changes on the farm. I'm going to pass it back to Nicole.
Thank you. Okay, so the last piece that I wanted to let you know about is our National Knowledge Transfer in Dairy Production Project. This is a new initiative by DFC, and we're piloting this over 3 years, and we have contracted Lactanet to deliver this project for us. And Vicky is in the room. Vicky, give a wave. Vicky is the project manager for this, and she came up with the Canadian Dairy Hub. Thank you. It's a much easier title than the other one. So, so we're very happy to introduce you to the Canadian Dairy Hub, and basically what this is as DFC with Amy and Anik, we do knowledge transfer specific to individual research projects. And with this Canadian Dairy Hub, it's giving us the ability to talk about knowledge transfer at a higher level, like collect all of the knowledge we have on a topic and present that out to farmers. So really looking at providing science-based information, efficient tools, and qualified expertise to dairy farmers and on-farm advisors. So what we want to do is expand our KT capability and expertise. We want to encourage BMP adoption on farm, and of course find a way for this to be sustainable in the long run. So we're quite excited about this project, and it's getting off the ground, we do have an advisory committee that's overseeing this, and the fabulous Dave Kelton is chairing that, so we have lots of people in the room today on this. So, but there's 4 key themes. We've got sustainability, animal welfare, animal health, and reproduction and management. There's a lot more topics we can cover, but we had to keep the scope down to something manageable for the project, and then we'll look forward to expanding it out as we move along. But just some quick little teasers for you. We did some sustainability webinars early in the year, and Vicki and her team have repackaged some of those pieces and plunked them in different forums, so feel free to go check those out. Last week, we had a webinar for dairy advisors on the new code of practice, and Stephen Roach was the guest speaker there. It was very well attended. We were very pleased with that. And for those that weren't able to make it, we recorded that session and it'll be available. And then coming up in December, we have a calf management webinar. And then early in the new year, in-person workshops. So part of the strategy with this KT project is to take a topic and create a suite of materials around it. So whether that's infographics, tools for farmers, decision trees, webinars, in-person meetings, trying to find different ways to bring that information through to farmers. Oh, and that's what I just said, all kinds of interesting things going along with it. And then we have other famous people in the room here that will be focused or highlighted early in the new year with a webinar on transition management and reproduction management. So really looking to showcase our Canadian dairy research and researchers and experts. So that's basically it on that. So I think Vicki has put some little postcards on your tables. Feel free to go check it out. The website is live, and we're very excited to have everybody's research highlighted here eventually. So I think that's it from me. Oh, actually, I'll do this super fast, and then I'll pass it back. So that's looking kind of to the future. We have a bunch of things that we need to do, a lot of work on the table. First of all, we are looking to update our net zero modeling. So when we have our new LCA results, we can really dig into how are we doing, where are we at, where do we still have opportunity for improve, where do we need to focus our efforts. We haven't done a social assessment in a long time, and the social component of sustainability is also really important. So we're looking at how do we do that, how do we report on all the good things that dairy farmers are doing. Carbon sequestration I already talked about. We need to figure out how we can capture the carbon capture data. And then of course, when we're looking at our greenhouse gas calculators, can we link current, like already existing data to that calculator, do data bridges? How can we lessen that kind of reporting load and be smart about it? And underlying it all is adoption of best management practices. So that's sort of kind of a high level, and then, I was gonna pass this back to you, Korb, for wrapping us up.
Perfect.
Some BNP.
So, as a farmer, there's a whole lot of challenges to this. There's a whole lot of challenges to getting farmers to change their ways. We will change. We're not totally stuck in the mud, but we change slowly. Like every year, like every time we do 1 year or one change, takes a year to do. So we've got a very short time window between now and 2050, and we need to start being able to make changes now. And those can be incremental, much like that methane efficiency index that we were talking about. Every little change helps our industry move forward, and the only way we're going to achieve this is to work together. So one of the key tools that we've developed is this best management guide. Best Management Practices Guide. And it's meant to be a living document. So as you do research that updates our information, or as companies develop technology that will help us to achieve a new goal, it will be added to this guide so that farmers like me can take a look at it and see, I've got to build a new barn this year, what considerations should I put into that? Or I know that my manure is worth something, what should I do to make my manure even more valuable and to waste even less, but also to reduce the impact it has on the environment? So I'm just going to run down one of those. These are the 5 main topics in the Best Management Practices Guide. Manure, as an example, is our second most, it causes the second highest amount of emissions on farm after enteric methane. And that number is actually going up in Canada. It's not going down. And typically that's because more and more of us are using liquid manure rather than solid manure. So there's lots that we can do. The first thing is to develop really good storage. We need to treat this like a resource, not a waste. So we have a good storage. We make sure we catch every drop of it. We collect our milk house wash water, and then we spread it at the appropriate time of the year. So that top one, the right time, the right place, the right amount, on the right spot. Those 4 R's. Whether we make it into compost or we dry gland it, we inject it into cover crops. There's a million different things that we can do to get the most value out of our manure. On our farm, we do drag line, we do cover crop. We put our manure through an anaerobic digester to collect a lot of that methane and turn it into another resource on our farm. And we're talking about aggregating data. This will be the thing that we're going to rely, as farmers, we're going to rely on you to help us with this. But aggregating our data, and especially around carbon and water and environmental attributes, I believe will have an economic value in the future. So me and a small group of farmers are working on this project right now where we are aggregating our carbon data, and a small farm like mine, just with the anaerobic digester provides the bulk of it, but it looks like at current carbon prices, there's about $80,000 to $120,000 worth of carbon that I am able to capture from my digester with the Clean Fuel Standards Act alone. So doing that work with one farm is very expensive, and I wouldn't be able to capture much of that. But I'm working with 12 farms, and it will cost me somewhere between 5 and 10% of that to capture, to measure, and to collect that data. So that project for our little group starts in January, and I'm happy to report back on how that goes. It's something that we would love other farmers to participate in if it's easy enough to do, and we have challenged our aggregator to look not only at our digester practice, but our full farm practice to see if we can turn more of our practices into actual dollars. And I think it's important right now in our industry to collect as many dollars from these practices as we can to invest into the next practice to reduce our carbon as quickly as we can, and hopefully encourage the next guy to do it too. So if we can use some of the dollars to do the next project on the next farm, I think it will add a ton of value. So there are lots of opportunities. So the opportunities, first of all, I think when we're farmers, we're selling a product to consumers, and in our supply management system, we often are not customer facing. We've got this little thing in between us, so we don't get to see our customers very much. But any research that we have done, customers are speaking loud and clear that they want us to do certain things on our farm. And Nicole outlined animal welfare. That's very important to our customers, and so is taking care of the environment. As farmers, we're the ones who see the impacts first. And we're lucky in Ontario, but look at BC the last few years. It's crazy what has gone out there. And you can argue with me whether climate change is real and it's just a cycle or not. But we know that the climate, whether it's man-made or it just happens, affects farmers first. We need our climate to do good things for us if we want to have good crop yields. And in a year like this in Ontario, when the weather is perfect, it's amazing what we can do. But if we want to change practices so that we have the social license to sell our product with our customers, we need to not only do these things, but talk about what we do, how we do it, where we're doing it, take pictures of all the lovely things that we do, and make sure we can back it up by science and data so that we are not greenwashing. We want this to be a real thing. And the only way we do that is to work together as farmers. So the collaboration piece to me is really important, and I think farmers are not only the opportunity, but we are also the problem. Sometimes we get in the way of progress. So sometimes politics are more important than actually getting things done, and sometimes change is really hard and they don't like people telling others what to do. So we need to create an atmosphere that farmers want to do this for themselves, and we need to give them the tools that they can do it on their farms easily and have an economic return. I think there's lots of opportunities for you as researchers. There's a million different ways to skin this cat, and we need to find some of them. I know many of you are working on this in various ways, and I've heard today already, we're the first speaker, and I've already heard 2 different platforms that are sending research back out to farmers. I will, this is a challenge to all of you, but I will tell you that as a farmer, I'm not going to look at a whole bunch of different websites and try to collect all of the research on my own and collate it and come up with some. So work together and figure out a way to present it to me so that I can get it to my farm and make it happen on my farm as quickly as possible. Don't make me search the web to do all this. And data is really going to be important. And there's a ton of data on most of our farms right now. This is the other challenge I will give you. As a farmer, I am not desperate to create more data or more data categories or have another column that I've got to fill out or transfer data from one project to another project. I will create the data with the systems I've got, and I will challenge you to take it and make it usable and take the work out of my hands, because I don't want to be a data manager. I want to farm. And I want you guys to turn my data into something that I can use and somebody else can use, and I'm happy to give it to you if you can do that for me. That will be our value proposition. But I don't want to be retyping the same data into a million different websites. And most of them right now are regulatory websites. I hate that. Gosh, I hate that. You do it over and over and over again. So my challenge to you is try to find ways to use all of the data that we already have to help with your projects, and most of us will be happy to give it to you. Reduce the effort or remove the farmer altogether from it, because the other thing we're not good at necessarily is giving you clean, accurate data. So if you can take it directly from my sensor, that would be better for you and for me. The challenges are great. Like, this is a massive project, and if we're being totally honest, we don't know exactly how we get all the way there. Just like if we look, so that's 26 years from now, 25 years from now. Just like if we look 25 years ago, we had no idea that we could have a supercomputer in our pocket. We don't know how we're going to get to where we are in 25 years, but we're going to do it because we've set that aspirational goal, and collectively we'll work together to do as well as we can. But these targets are coming fast. So that gives me 25 more growing seasons to make my operation net zero. That's not a lot of growing seasons. So we need to get going, and we need to give me the opportunity to jump in with both feet on something. It's hard for farmers to take a whole big global view of all these things and decide what they're gonna do. It will be really nice when it's easier for them to do it. And here's the package, here's the recipe, go ahead and do it, and here's gonna be your return. Or here's where you'll get your funding, or whatever it is. That will make it a lot easier for farmers to jump in and do it. So the funding and support of high impact GHGs that have no return for farmers will be important. And in my, I don't have to talk about it because I don't have a ton of political ties. So in my perfect world, some of that happens within our industry. We talk about the carbon market insetting and offsetting, but this whole project really is an inset project. We need, as a dairy industry, from the farm right to the consumer, to work on this together. So we need our processors to be a part of it, our transporters to be a part of it. I'll just give you an example of an easy win to me. So on a farm like mine where we produce a little bit of methane and we make a little bit of electricity, I think our digester is designed to make about 500 kilowatts worth of electricity, so it's not very big. If we had 7 digester projects that size in Ontario, that would provide enough clean, renewable natural gas to power the entire fleet of milk trucks in the province. Just 7. So imagine if we made that kind of decision across the country, that we make these decisions, it's very marketable. It helps to support the clean transition of energy. It helps to move milk in a green way. It tells our story. It's using resources from our farms. That's just one example of a million that we could do to make this happen quicker. So those of us in this room need to find ways to advance those projects, to fund those projects, and then to brag about them as loud as we can. The communication with farmers, I don't mind getting told to zip it, that they've heard enough about sustainability, but there's not a lot of people who love hearing that message. So communicating to farmers is best done probably at a kitchen table when they can see the numbers for themselves, or across a fence where they can see what's happening at the neighbor's place. But you guys can figure that out. Figure out how to talk to me. What are you going to need to do to convince me to do it? My time is the most valuable thing I've got. So figure out a way that is quick. I need an elevator pitch, and then I want to go find resources that are easy to understand and easy to adapt to my farm. So the other thing that I think will be interesting is some of these trade-offs. And that'll be something we can debate in the future. Let's have that debate in 10 years, because for now I think we just need to dive with both feet and get going at something. I think it's really, really important that as we plan for these things, we talk about greenhouse gas now, but that is not the only environmental thing on consumers' minds, nor is it on farmers' minds. Water it will be huge, and it's not going to be long from now. So start making plans on your own operations to save your gray water, or to use less when washing down, or all irrigation will be brought up over and over again, I'm sure, in our lifetimes. And biodiversity, yes, we want to farm most of our land, but we have to make sure we maintain some wild land so that biodiversity continues. So some of those things are going to be really, really important as we move forward as well. It's going to be challenging, because those ones are going to be a tougher economic model to justify. So we need to think of creative ways to encourage farmers to do that. Overall, I mentioned it when I interrupted Nicole, that we are a small part of a very large world. And I hear over and over again, like, as a Canadian dairy industry, we're only 1% of our greenhouse gas emissions in this country. So it's a fraction of a percent in the world. But every percent matters. And if we can do it, and turn it into profit, or turn that into sales because we're doing the right thing for our consumers, let's get going. And lastly, 2050 is very ambitious to have net zero and we need your help, your ideas, your innovation, your big brains. Dairy at Guelph we get, as you mentioned, we got some of the best in the world here, and we're counting on you to provide us with solutions. So it's a pleasure to be here. We're happy to take any questions you've got about where DFC and Lactanet are going, or in general, as a dairy farmer, I'm happy to rant even longer. Thank you.